In the chilling grip of Texas's death row, Jeffery Lee Wood has languished since 1998, over 27 years ticking by in Polunsky Unit's concrete tomb, twice yanked from the execution chamber in 2008 and 2016, with no new date set as 2025 fades. Convicted under the controversial law of parties, Wood never fired a shot, yet stands condemned for a 1996 Kerrville gas station robbery, where his accomplice gunned down clerk Kriss Keeran in a botched heist gone bloody. The shock. A mentally fragile man, plagued by delusions, faces lethal injection for a crime he didn't commit directly. But as appeals dwindle, one haunting question lingers: will justice bend toward mercy, or will the needle finally claim him? In the sweltering heat of a Texas summer, on August 19, 1973, Jeffery Lee, Jeff, Wood entered the world amid a nation in turmoil. America was still bleeding from the wounds of the Vietnam War, with soldiers returning haunted and protests echoing in the streets. Watergate loomed like a dark cloud, unraveling trust in the highest offices. Raised in the rugged expanse of Texas hill country, Jeff's childhood was a far cry from the romanticized image of wide-open ranches and close-knit communities. His parents' divorce shattered any illusion of stability when he was just a boy, thrusting him into a nomadic existence, bounced between households like an unwanted parcel. Emotional neglect hung heavy in the air, compounded by financial strife that left little room for dreams. Meals were sparse, affection even scarcer. By his early teens, the signs of inner chaos were unmistakable. School became a battlefield, diagnosed with learning disorders and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Jeff lagged behind his peers, his mind a foggy labyrinth where focus slipped away like sand. Psychological reports from those formative years sketched a portrait of a soul in freefall. At 12, a school evaluator flagged his emotional disturbances withdrawn and isolated. Jeff retreated into a world of delusions, where reality blurred with phantom fears. Voices whispered in his head, shadows morphed into threats. To escape the torment, he turned to substances, alcohol at first, then marijuana, escalating to harder drugs that promised oblivion but delivered deeper despair. His late teens were a whirlwind of institutionalization, in and out of juvenile detention centers, culminating in a stint at a mental health facility in San Marcos, Texas. Confined until his 18th birthday, Jeff emerged not healed, but hardened homeless, directionless. Drifting through Kerrville's sleepy streets, a town famed for its winding rivers and rolling hills, but hiding pockets of poverty and desperation. Odd jobs kept him afloat, washing cars, flipping burgers, even a brief gig at a local Texaco station. But the cycle of petty crimes, shoplifting, minor thefts, pulled him under, a gravitational force he couldn't resist. It was in this underbelly that fate dealt its cruel hand. Enter Daniel Earl, Danny Renault, a 20-year-old powder keg fresh out of his own juvenile psych ward. Charismatic on the surface, Renault masked a volatile core, impulsive, violent, with a rap sheet that screamed trouble. The two bonded in Kerrville's shadows, scraping by on shared hardships and stolen moments. Friends saw Jeff as gullible, easily swayed. To him, Danny was a shield against the world's cruelties. Yet, Jeff's demons ran deeper. Diagnoses accumulated like storm clouds: delusional disorder, paranoid personality traits, antisocial tendencies. He harbored irrational terrors, made choices that defied reason, his mind a tangled web where logic frayed. In a society that warehoused the mentally ill rather than treating them, Jeff fell through every crack, untethered, unmedicated. As 1995 faded into the chill of 1996, the holidays offered no respite, only mounting desperation. With two Texaco acquaintances whispering of easy money, Jeff and Danny concocted a scheme born from the gutters: a staged robbery at the station, splitting the holiday cash haul. It was meant to be clean, bloodless, a desperate grab for survival. But in the twisted annals of true crime, Plans like these rarely end without a body count, and this one would ignite a firestorm over justice, guilt, and the thin line between accomplice and victim. For the details of how the incident happened, in December 1995, 2 to 3 weeks before the fateful heist, Jeffery Lee Wood and Daniel Earl, Danny, Renault began piecing together a scheme that seemed foolproof in their desperate minds. They targeted the Texaco gas station in Kerrville, Texas, a modest spot on Sidney Baker Street where pumps hummed under fluorescent lights and shelves brimmed with chips, sodas, and lottery tickets. Enlisting 2 acquaintances who worked there as insiders, the plan was pitched as a staged robbery, no real danger, just a clever grab for the post-holiday cash swelling the safe. The employees would play along, handing over the money without a fight, and everyone would split the spoils. It was born from the grind of small-town poverty, where dreams of quick cash whispered louder than warnings of risk. Conversations unfolded in hushed tones over cheap coffee or in dingy apartments, mapping out the details, timing it for early morning when the station was quiet, ensuring the safe was unlocked, and vanishing before dawn broke fully. No one mentioned guns or violence. It was supposed to be clean, a victimless con that would lift them out of the rut. As New Year's Eve bled into the early hours of January fun, 1996, the plot solidified over beers in a dimly lit Kerrville dive. Wood and Renault hunkered down, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the buzz of holiday hangovers. They ran through the steps one last time, strike at dawn on the 2nd, when the safe would be stuffed with Christmas and New Year's receipts, thousands in crisp bills waiting to be skimmed. The 2 insiders had sworn their cooperation, promising to act surprised but compliant. No alarms tripped, no heroes stepping up. Laughter punctuated the planning, nerves masked by liquid courage, as they envisioned the payout funding fresh starts, maybe a beat-up car to escape town or rent on a place without leaky roofs. The night stretched on, bottles clinking, voices dropping to whispers about contingencies. What if a customer wandered in? Stick to the script. What if the safe jammed? Force it open quietly. By the time they parted ways under a starless sky, the decision was locked in. Tomorrow. It happened. The chill of the Texas winter nipped at their heels as they headed home, the weight of anticipation settling like frost. Dawn crept over Kerrville on January 2, 1996, painting the Guadalupe River Valley in pale light, the air crisp and biting with the promise of a cold day. The town stirred slowly from holiday slumber, pickup trucks rumbling down quiet streets lined with oaks and modest homes. Wood and Renault pulled up in an old, rattling truck, parking across from the Texaco station, a beacon of neon in the gray morning. Inside, 22-year-old Chris Kieran clocked in for his shift, his breath fogging the glass door as he flipped the "Open" sign. Kieran, with his easy smile and reliable nature, was just another local grinding through life, supporting his family with early hours and friendly chit-chat over coffee refills. He stocked shelves, wiped counters, oblivious to the shadows lurking outside. The station smelled of fresh, brewed joe and motor oil, a familiar routine shattered only by the distant hum of traffic on the interstate. Around 6 a.m., as the first hints of sunrise edged the horizon, Wood hunkered in the truck's cab, his pulse thundering like a drum in his ears. Adrenaline surged, mixing with a gnawing dread that twisted his gut. The plan hinged on him as the getaway driver, stay put, engine idling, ready to peel out once Renault emerged with the bag. The street was deserted, save for the occasional car headlights slicing the dark. Wood gripped the wheel, knuckles white, his breath shallow as he stared at the station's glowing windows. This was it, the moment where desperation met action. Moments later, Renault strode across the pavement, his steps purposeful under the station's awning. He pushed through the door, the bell jingling innocently. Kieran looked up from behind the counter, offering a casual nod, perhaps recognizing Renault as a semi-familiar face from previous stops. The exchange started routine. Renault muttered something about cigarettes or a soda, but tension crackled like static. He demanded the cash, voice low and edged with menace, flashing the concealed .22 caliber pistol. Kieran froze, eyes widening in confusion or defiance. Maybe he hesitated to punch in the safe code, or perhaps he reached for the phone. In a split-second eruption, Renault's temper flared. The gun barked once, a sharp crack echoing through the store like thunder in a bottle. The bullet struck Kieran square in the head at point-blank range, blood spraying across the Formica counter in a gruesome arc. Kieran crumpled instantly, his body hitting the floor with a thud, life extinguished in an instant amid scattered receipts and spilled coffee. The gunshot pierced the morning quiet, jolting Wood in the truck like an electric shock. He sat frozen, heart slamming against his ribs, the sound reverberating in his skull. Panic clawed at him. What went wrong? This wasn't the plan. Renault's shout cut through the hazy. "Get in here!" Wood's legs moved on autopilot, trembling as he swung open the door and crossed the street. Pushing into the store, the bell mocked him with its cheerful ding. The scene assaulted his senses. Kieran's lifeless form sprawled in a pooling crimson lake, the metallic tang of blood thick in the air, mingled with gunpowder's acrid bite. Shelves loomed like silent witnesses, candy wrappers fluttering in the draft. Renault, eerily composed, rummaged the safe, stuffing bills around all 11,000 to 11,350 into a bag and yanking the security tape from the VCR. In the chaotic seconds that followed, Renault thrust the still warm pistol toward Wood, eyes wild. "Finish him, make sure he's gone," he barked, gesturing at the body. Wood recoiled, hands shaking violently, the gun feeling like lead in his grip. "No, man, I can't," he stammered, voice cracking with horror, tears blurring his vision. The refusal hung heavy, a fragile stand amid the carnage. Renault snatched the weapon back, shoving the bag at Wood. By 6:05 a.m., they bolted, the truck's engine roaring to life as Wood floored the accelerator. Tires screeched on asphalt, the station shrinking in the rearview mirror. The hall felt tainted, insignificant against the life snuffed out. Wood's mind raced with paranoia, shadows seeming to pursue them through Kerrville's winding roads. They ditched the truck in a secluded spot, splitting up under the rising sun. The community would soon awaken to shock, a senseless slaying in their peaceful enclave, ripples of grief spreading from Kieran's family, who remembered him as a kind-hearted provider, to friends mourning a future stolen at 22. This climax wasn't just the bullet's path, it was the shattering of illusions, a botched grab turning deadly, forever scarring the quiet Texas morning. In the sweltering aftermath of January 2, 1996, as the sun climbed higher over Kerrville, the net closed in fast. Police sirens sliced through the midday haze, converging on tips from shaken witnesses who'd glimpsed the fleeing truck. The two station insiders, their absences raising red flags, cracked under early questioning, spilling details of the staged heist gone lethal. By late afternoon, Wood was in cuffs, hauled into a stark interrogation room at the Kerr County Sheriff's Office. His clothes still reeked of fierce sweat and gasoline, his eyes darting like trapped animals. Detectives leaned in, recording every word as he unraveled, confessing in fragmented bursts. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," he mumbled, replaying the horror, but his ramblings veered into the surreal, whispers of unseen pursuers, delusions creeping in like shadows. Officers exchanged glances. This wasn't the steely criminal they'd expected, but a fractured soul teetering on the edge. Renault was nabbed shortly after, his bravado crumbling in a holding cell. The evidence mounted swiftly. The discarded truck yielded fingerprints. The pilfered cash turned up in hasty hides, and the missing security tape sealed the narrative. Prosecutors, spearheaded by the tenacious Lucy Wilk, wasted no time framing the case. By mid-January, formal charges of capital murder landed, invoking Texas's infamous law of parties, a legal hammer that didn't care who pulled the trigger, only that death occurred during the felony. Wood's indirect role became his noose. The state argued he should have seen the violence coming, his presence and planning making him as culpable as the shooter. As winter dragged into spring, pretrial motions churned through the courts. Wood's defense team, court-appointed and overburdened, scrambled to highlight his vulnerabilities, but the system ground forward relentlessly. Suicide watch became routine after Wood's desperate slash at his wrists in jail, blood staining the cell floor as guards intervened. Psych evaluations trickled in, but they were dismissed as excuses in the prosecution's eyes. By summer 1996, the case dominated local headlines, Kerrville's tight-knit community demanding justice for Kieran, whose funeral had drawn hundreds, flowers piling high on a casket draped in grief. The trial erupted in March 1998, transforming the Kerr County Courthouse into a theater of retribution. Jury selection dragged under the weight of publicity, with potential panelists grilled on their views of the death penalty, Texas's favorite tool, having claimed over 400 lives since reinstatement in 1976. Opening statements painted stark contrasts. Wilk portrayed Wood as a calculating enabler, his getaway driving the final nail in Kieran's coffin. The defense countered feebly, arguing diminished capacity, but their resources were thin, expert witnesses sparse. Testimony unfolded like a grim script. Eyewitnesses recounted the morning's chaos. Forensic experts detailed the bullet's path through Kieran's skull, splatter patterns mapping the violence. The surveillance tape, recovered despite Renew's grab, played in grainy silence, capturing the fatal shot and Wood's hesitant entry. Insiders took the stand, their deals for leniency evident as they fingered Wood in the plotting. But the bombshell came from Dr. James Grigson, the notorious Dr. Death, whose testimony had doomed dozens before. Without ever laying eyes on Wood, Grigson proclaimed him a future danger, his psychiatric crystal ball predicting inevitable violence. The jury leaned forward, absorbing the pseudoscience that would later unravel his career, expulsion from professional bodies for ethical lapses. Cross-examinations turned heated, defense attorneys poking holes in timelines and motives, but momentum favored the state. Wood sat stoic, advised to silence, his fate hinging on strangers. Closing arguments sealed the deal. Wilk invoked Kieran's stolen future, a young man gunned down for pocket change. The jury deliberated mere hours before returning guilty on capital murder, invoking the law of parties. Penalty phase followed, a brutal referendum on Wood's worth. Grigson's words echoed as they answered the special issues affirmatively yes. He posed a threat, yes. He anticipated murder. On March 3, 1998, the gavel fell, death by lethal injection. Wood's reaction was muted, a blank stare betraying the storm inside. Appeals launched immediately, but the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed in 2000, brushing aside mental health pleas. Renew met his end first, on June 13, 2002, strapped down in Huntsville as toxins coursed through his veins. Wood watched from afar, his own clock ticking. The first brush with the chamber came August 21, 2008. Scheduled for execution, Wood's team fought to the wire. Federal Judge Orlando Garcia intervened hours before, citing botched representation and competency doubts, a scathing rebuke of the trial's flaws. Stay granted, the case simmered in limbo. August 2016 brought another countdown. Amnesty International blasted a report on the 12th, decrying the injustice. Public pressure mounted, even Wilk, now a judge, petitioned for mercy. On the 19th, Wood's birthday, the Texas Appeals Court halted it days shy, remanding for Grigson's scrutiny and law of parties review. November 21, 2018, delivered a gut punch, appeal denied. Execution greenlit anew, though no date set. Reform whispers grew. By May 13, 2023, Rep. Jeff Leach pushed House Bill 1736 targeting accomplice sentences like Wood's. It stalled but spotlighted the cracks. April 1, 2025, a Medium piece revisited the saga. Wood still languishing on death row. The TCADP's December 15 report noted no movement, his fate suspended in Polunsky's concrete hell. The turning point. Not a single event, but the slow grind exposing a system's blind spots, where indirect guilt equals death, and redemption hangs by a thread. As of December 31, 2025, the iron bars of Polunsky unit still cage Jeffery Wood, his existence a stark emblem in the shadowy corridors of Texas's death row. Nearly 3 decades after that fateful Kerrville morning, his case flickers like a dying bulb, illuminating the cracks in a system built on retribution. Back in 2023, Republican Representative Jeff Leach thrust House Bill 1736 into the legislative fray, a bold stab at reigning in the law of parties that ensnares accomplices like Wood in Capitol Newses. Drawing direct fire from his story, the bill aimed to bar death sentences for those who never pulled triggers or spilled blood. It stalled in the political quagmire, passing the House but languishing in the Senate. Yet its echo signals a slow tide turning against blanket executions. A Medium expose from April 2025 peeled back the layers once more, recounting the twisted path from robbery to Gurney, while the Texas Coalition to abolish the death penalty's mid-year report in July, and their December wrap-up, offered no fresh twists. Wood lingers in limbo, his appeals grinding through the courts, including fresh pleas for DNA retesting on overlooked evidence, hoping to unearth doubts that could shatter his sentence. Whispers of clemency swirl, but the state's machinery hums on, indifferent. In the annals of true crime, Wood's saga stands as a haunting parable of justice's blind spots. From evangelical pulpits to abolitionist rallies, voices clamor for grace, painting him not as monster, but as a pawn in a deadly game. His prison letters bleed remorse, scrawled words laced with the haze of lingering delusions, begging forgiveness for a crime he never directly committed. Texas, the nation's execution epicenter, has claimed over 500 lives since 1976, yet Wood's improbable stays, twice snatched from death's door, expose the rot condemning the mentally shattered, the indirectly involved, to a fate they didn't wield. As the clock ticks into 2026, the question hangs like a noose. Will mercy finally cut the rope? Or will the lethal cocktail claim another soul in the name of flawed vengeance? In this grim lottery, only the scales of justice and the whims of time hold the answer.